All right, so before I get started cleaning off all the crusty rusties on this thing, I thought what I might do is I picked up this borescope, this Teslong borescope, and it's kind of a, it's a more economical version of the ones we actually use at my day job to look inside gas turbines. And I thought, I wonder if I could actually see the damage inside, because again, as I mentioned, when I had this cover off, I could see the gears were all chewed up. Closer look at the internals here, and check that out. There's actually pieces of the teeth that are missing. And since there's no oil in there, I thought, you know what? I might give this borescope a try just to see what we could see. And you can just pick these up on Amazon, but the tip is actually small enough, and it's lit up too. Check that out. It's small enough to fit in there. Now, I don't know, can you actually control? Oh, that's slick. Okay, now the real fancy borescopes, like I was saying, the borescopes that I use in my day job, or my team uses, they actually have an ability to move around. Oh, this one does too. It's got a little dial, so it can go in and out. Okay. Oh, there we go. Ah, check it out. Okay, maybe I'll bend it a bit more. Does it actually move? Oh, look at that. It actually moves the head. Oh, that's really fancy. Okay. Let's see. So we'll bend it. And look, you can actually see the damaged teeth that I saw. So this is actually a pretty slick little tool. Oh, now I lost it. Oh, there it is there. That is really neat. So you can use this to look inside differentials and see all the chewed up teeth, or you can use it to look inside engines and see you could shove it through a spark plug hole. Yeah, that's really neat. That's a neat tool for the toolbox. So just thought I'd share that. So like I say, if you want to get one of these, you can just pick them up on Amazon. I'll put the link in my description. Very cool. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'll get out my wire wheel and my needle scaler and get all this junk off of here. And maybe I'll take this pinion nut off as well and just start taking this apart and clean it up, ready for some paint. Okay, so I got a nice coat of POR on there. So obviously I couldn't get underneath everywhere. So once it's back in the car, I'll go ahead and paint the missing spots. But yeah, that's looking good. Okay, I'll let that harden. Oh, the old wire wheel, occupational hazard. You get stabbed with all the needles that fly off. That's what was so itchy. Okay, so the reason I didn't paint these outer, the brackets or the plates that hold the calipers is because, as I mentioned, I got Wilwood ones that are going to be a little different. So once I pull the axles out, I can take the 4 bolts out here, I don't know if you can see that, and then take these off of there, and then I can put the new ones on there, the new Wilwood ones, bolt them on, and then put the new axle in. Okay, so I guess while that paint's drying, I suppose I can take that cover plate off and then start taking this thing apart. Okay, this is a C-clip style retainer that holds the axle in place. So, well, I guess first up I gotta take that little, I gotta take that little guy out of there. That little guy, you don't need to worry about that little guy. So once you get that lock nut out, this pin just falls out of here, or it should just come out of there pretty easily. And now, what I can do is, I can get those C-clips out of there. So C-clips are just holding the axle, and what I like to do is just get POR paint all over my hand, but push in on the axle, and then you can see the little C-clip there. I don't know if this guy's going to fit in there or not. There it is. One C-clip. And then after you do that, it allows the axle to just come right out of there. One axle. Oh, that one just fell. Even easier. Right in the dirty old gear oil. And then out comes this axle. All right. So, next up what I might do is try and get these ends off of here. Take these bolts off and take the caliper mount off. Next up, if I can find the right socket, yep, 5/8. We'll take the carrier out of there. Left and up. Good. And right up. Perfect. There it goes. Oh. And there goes one shim. So that was the shim on the left side. And the bearing in the races. Okay. And then right. Clean up the rest of this old gross oil. And now I gotta get the pinion out of there. State. Well, I'm not too worried about this, but I suppose if someone wanted some highway gears for an 8.5 inch rear end, the old crush collar. Now, what I've read, and I've done a little research online, is there's a shim in there for the underneath the bearing that sets the depth of the pinion. And 9 times out of 10, if you reuse the one that was in there, because obviously this was, you know, A-OK from a tooth engagement wear pattern, if it worked on this pinion, odds are it's going to get me close on the new one. So I've actually got to pull this bearing off. Now, you can just beat it off of there, but I've actually got a special tool. I'm going to see how that works to pull this guy right off of there. I want to get this shim out of here and put it on the new pinion. Now, as you can see, the new pinion is a smaller diameter with less teeth. Of course, it's a lower gear ratio to be able to spin the tires on the Trans Am without issue. So going from, I think it was a 320 or 323 to a 390. So in order to get the bearing off of there, you can do one of two things. You can hack away on it and try and cut it and cut the inner ring there and get it off of there. Or you can actually invest in a bearing puller. So Vevor actually had a slick setup that I thought I'd pick one up. If you're actually interested in one of these, you can look at the description down below, and I've got the link to it. But it's a pretty slick little tool. I think it's called a clamshell deal, and it's got different diameters. So obviously larger and smaller, so you can't set them up incorrectly. Now that one's obviously not going to work, so we'll try the bigger one. And yeah, that seems to be the right size. Maybe check the black one. There's different sizes. Here's a larger one for probably a 4-wheel drive pickup truck. Dana 60 or something. No, that one's too big. And that one is just a touch too small. It almost works. Yeah, maybe that's the one I want to use. Okay, so then what you do is you put the ring on there. Is that going to work? Yeah, that's just going to fit. Okay, nice and snug. So the way this clamshell works, whoops, is the clamshell goes around, and you want to do this with the race in place. And this is the tool here. I'll turn it sideways so you can see what I'm doing here. Now essentially this goes over the pinion like so, and of course this is screwed in too far. Sometimes it's nice to have the right tool for the job. And it's already pre-lubed. You want to make sure the threads are lubed up there so they don't gall up when you start putting the torque to it. And then essentially it goes, I'll do it like this so you can see what I'm up to here. So this, these two rings, they've got to be, this one's got to be snugged down, and that's why it's threaded, so you can actually adjust it for different setups. Okay, something like that. All right, and I'm just doing it sideways here so you can kind of see what's doing. And tighten it up. See the angle here matches that cut there. No, that's just grabbing the race. Maybe this isn't the right one. Let's try the orange. Like so. And then you put the and you put this guy over top to keep the clam together. Just finger tight, and then as I tighten this down, it should pull that bearing right off of there in a nice controlled fashion. Let's see how this works. There, that should do it. Perfect. Man, that is slick. Now it pulls the bearing off just beautifully. No damage. Could reuse it if I had to. And then there's the shim I was looking for. So it's a 38, probably 38 thou, I'm guessing. So I will put that right there and then put the new bearing on that pinion. And this thing can also be used for pulling the bearings off the carrier as well. And it's got a little different setup for that. This stem that goes into different size diameters. So it's going to push against the inner part of the carrier and allowing the bearing to come off as this bolt goes down. So same idea. I'm going to do the clamshell. Well, let's see if this is this might be the smaller one now. There, that's the one. We like that. Raise the ring up. The other half of the clam on. And see if this pulls it off. Beauty, Clark. Absolute beauty. Okay. Man, this is a slick tool. Yeah, so there's no shims on the carrier, but that's how you get the bearing off if you wanted to replace the bearings on your existing carrier. Now, of course, I've got that new fancy one that I'm going to install, but yeah, that is a slick tool. So like I say, if you're interested in one of these, you can go check out vevor.com or check out the link down below in my description. All right, so let's set up the new carrier now. So of course, this is the Yukon Gear setup, Posi setup that I got from Quick Performance, and you can see the springs and the clutches in there. That's gonna be beautiful. And the gears aren't all chewed up like the ones are on the old carrier. Yeah, of course we were looking at that earlier with the borescope. So that's a paperweight now. But I was just looking at the new ring, just seeing if there's any nicks on it from either transport or manufacturing, and it actually looks beautiful. Nothing on there at all. So I can go ahead and set this on there, and we can bolt it into place, bolt it and torque it up. Nice. And of course they get the whole new bolting and bearing kit. It's got all new bolts, and you want to be careful with these bolts because of course they're left-handed thread, just like the driver's side bolts on an old Peterbilt. And they are recommending red thread locker on there. Now that's the little squish tube that they give you. I've also got some Permatex stuff. I find it a little easier to squeeze it out with this little guy here. got this new digital torque wrench. I'm kind of digging it. It starts beeping at you when you start getting close. And then it starts really beeping at you when you get the full. So it calls for between 60 and 65, so I think I set it at 63, somewhere in there. And that one's good. I'll just go around and make sure I didn't miss any. Kind of missed the old click. Oh, missed this one. But this is definitely more accurate. I bought this for putting together the engine once I get it back from Butler. All right, so let's see here. Bake it, I don't know, 400. Okay. Now, of course, the bearings are a tight fit. Well, that one goes there. And then these are the carrier bearings here. So I could bang them on there, and it probably still will require a little bit of persuasion, but I figured it couldn't hurt to warm them up a little. A little toaster oven. Okay. I bought this a couple years ago to do some sandblasting, or powder coating. It's coming in handy again. And then I also noticed there's a little bit of course, there's that shim I added. There's some kind of, I don't know if it's some kind of glue or oil in the manufacturing process, but I'm gonna get some brake clean and clean all that crap off of there. You can't go wrong with brake clean. You don't need to worry about getting it on your hands. Might get some of that Ep.13 paint that I got on there. I don't know, man, that stuff goes everywhere. I swear that poor 15 paint is more ruthless than anti-seize. I just, every time I paint something, I always, even if I wear gloves, I seem to end up getting it just everywhere. Well, obviously, because the paint was still wet and I started farting around with taking the diff apart, so that was probably part of the problem too. Yeah, so Top Don sent this to me last year, and it's actually a cool little device to go when you do a walk around your vehicle to see if there's any hot spots on the engine or the wheel bearings or the brakes. All right, let's see how they're looking. Oh, they're about 100, 196. Oh no, 105 Celsius. And what the hell is that in Fahrenheit? Okay, so next up, I want to get the old seals out of here and the old bearings on both sides and the front pinion. Now, I actually picked myself up a little kit here off Amazon, a slide hammer kit, to hopefully help with this job. This might have been easier with the diff in the car, because it's going to want to move on me now. Well, I'm going to do this the old way, like this. Come on. Where's my hammer? Right here. There. That way works way better. And since I got it in my hand, I might as well do the other one. Done. Let's try the slide hammer though for the bearing, because there's a special tool for that. So it swivels, so when it stands up, it can actually go through the center of the bearing, and then when you go to pull on it, it straightens out and then pulls the bearing. Again, this thing's going to want to move on me. There it goes. Ah, man, that actually worked pretty slick. Right tool for the job. One bearing flying across the shop. Okay, so that worked good. Now for the pinion seal and the pinion bearing, I think I can just hit it from behind and bang it out with a punch. There it goes. Okay, now that everything is out of there, I guess I'll get the brake clean out and clean this up as best I can, and we can start reassembly. So here's these beautiful new axles from Quick Performance. And we've got the bearing and the seal on the axle itself. All right, so I also picked up, what do they call this thing? A bearing race and seal driver set. So I think this would be the right size for this guy. Oh yeah. Beauty, Clark. And then just give it a little love tap. Well, this one might be a little too big. No. Huh. Okay, let me try the other side. Won't quite fit in the tube there. No, that one's too small. It's going to hit on the rollers. Okay, so you try and buy the right tool, and you end up using a socket anyway. Now the tone should change when it bottoms out. You hear it went a little higher? And I can just double check. But I think that's where it needs to be. Beauty. It's gonna work. I guess this will work for the seal because the seal, this doesn't actually need to go right down into the cylinder. Maybe we'll just put a little bit of grease in there, because why not, right? He don't mind the grease on his hands while he's eating.
He's a jerry-rigging fool, he got the tool for the job.
Just so they've got something to chew on until some oil comes down the axle tube there. Didn't put the crush collar in or the crush sleeve. So what this is this goes behind the nut, and as you tighten it, this will eventually, when you put enough torque to it, start to compress, and it will set up the rotational torque or the preload that you want on that bearing. Now, the other way to do it, because if you go past that point, if you just ugga-dugga this in there and you squish this, you got to get a new crush sleeve. So the other way to do it, which is a bit more labor intensive, is you can use a solid ring in there, but then you have to shim it. So it takes a few times taking this on and off in order to get the proper preload for the torque. Now the proper torque on a new bearing, I believe, is between 15 and 20 inch-pounds. So you got to get yourself one of these little old school torque wrenches with the lever, and you don't look at breakaway torque. Here, I'll bring the camera so you can see. You don't look at breakaway torque because it takes a little more to get the thing turning, but you want to see what the torque is when you're actually moving it. And this one, I'm gonna have to take a close look at that. Yeah, this appears maybe a little tight. Well, that's 10 going that way, or maybe about 17 going that way. Yeah, it's under 20. So I could probably leave that for now in order to do the setup, because I was trying to think, well, you only get one crush sleeve, and you only get one chance to do it right, and then if you have to take this off of there and put a new shim underneath the main pinion bearing, you can't use this and can't do this again. So I'm pretty sure this is how you do it. I'm sure the folks out there in the comments will tell me otherwise. But yeah, so I just tightened this up enough to get the 15 to 20 inch-pounds to turn this, and that should be the correct preload to start looking at the gear pattern with the gear smear. And now what I'm doing is I'm measuring the backlash. So you want between, what is it, 7 to 9 thou, I think? Let me just double check. Yeah, each ring gear and pinion is developed to run at 7 to 9 thou backlash for street gear setup. So basically to do the backlash is you just get the dial indicator, and then you go back and forth, basically holding the pinion, and find out what that slop is, you could say. So 0, so it's about 14, yeah, it's about 14 or 15 thou. So that's no bueno. That's gonna have to get adjusted. Oh man, here we go. All right, so what I did was I changed the shims and then I put the carrier back in there. So it's basically, I moved it over a little closer to the pinion to try and take out some of that slack. So now we're approximately, I would say that's 9. So we're on the high end. It's not, yeah, it's 9. So they call it 7 to 9. So I can get comfortable with that. Maybe I'll just double check. I'm happy with that. Okay, so now that I got a decent backlash, what I'm gonna do now is paint on the teeth and see how the wear pattern looks. So what I'm trying to do is paint on this yellow paste on both sides of the teeth on the ring gear. So you paint this goop on there. Arts and Crafts Hour at TwinStick Garage. All right, so I'm struggling a little on interpreting the pattern there. So I thought I'm gonna try and get a little more resistance going here. So maybe put the axles in. Like so. And then repaint on both the, so just a little explanation. So this is the toe, and out here is the heel, and then the top is the crown, and then the bottom of the V is the root. So you're trying to get a contact pattern. Now, there's lots of people that have lots of opinions on this, but what I've kind of found over the years, and from what I've read and watched videos and people that have told me, is ideally, you're looking for a football. You don't want the teeth to be contacting too deep, and you don't want them too shallow either, right? Because if they're too shallow and you really put the coal to it, it could actually break teeth off or do damage. So you want them actually to make a good contact. Now this is the drive side. the bent side, and then this is the coast side. So we need to look at the pattern on both. Now ideally, we get a little, well, I can't draw a really good football. I don't even know if you can see that. Right in the middle. Now, this is where the shims come into play. So there's obviously shims here on either side of the carrier. So what I did was I used the original shim that was on the right side, and then I used some supplied shims to adjust that backlash to get into that 7 to 9 range. So that's set now. But now what can happen is you can vary the thickness of the shim underneath the pinion bearing, and that'll set how deep or how far out the pinion is, and that's going to be your primary change agent for the contact pattern. So with this stuff, I've also read that you can actually thin it out a little bit with motor oil or some other diluent to try and get it to make a good patch. I mean, essentially you only need to do about 3 or 4 teeth. I've been playing with this for a while, so now I got the pinion dirty. So now a lot of teeth are getting decorated. Now once I finish with this and I get the contact pattern I like, I'm going to have to do my best to clean this out of here. I'll probably take the, well, will I take the carrier out of there? Yeah, I might. We'll see. We'll see. So now what I want to do is try and run this through and then try and hold the pinion. I'm wearing a glove. I'm going to try and turn it out here and then hold the pinion as well, because I really want to get a good contact. So I'll go around about 6 times this way, and then I'll do the same thing in reverse. And then we'll take a look and see what that pattern looks like. Okay, now go the other way. Okay, so I'm really digging this. This is actually looking pretty good. So hopefully you can see this. Let me just double check in the camera there. Yeah. So you can see I got a football shape right in the center of the tooth, and the top of the sunrise doesn't quite crest the top of the crown of the tooth. So it's just under the top. So that is a really nice contact from a depth perspective. Now it is a little closer to the toe edge than I'd like. I mean, ideally you want it right in the center. So I'd want it a little farther back this way towards the heel. However, I think the thinnest shim you can get to put under the pinion bearing is 5 thou, which would bring the pinion into the case more here, into the carrier, and then it would, I believe, shove it up the heel. But my worry is if I put that 5 thou shim in, my football might go all the way out to here. So I could live with that on the drive side of the tooth. I'm really liking the contact pattern, so I'd probably give that about a 70%. Now let's look on the other side, on the coast side. Now the coast side, we're looking really good as well. Again, sunrise. Oh, actually, it looks really good on this tooth that doesn't have paint on it. The sunrise doesn't quite get to the edge of the crown. You notice how it's about the thickness of this pointer down. So there's the nice football. It's not too deep. Yeah, I'm actually digging that. I'd give that one probably about an 80%. So I could almost send this the way it is. And I just thought it wouldn't hurt to do a little backlash final check. And I count, what is that? 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 thou, and it's calling for 7 to 9, so I'll take it. I think she's good. way I look at it, it's better to be paranoid and do a little at a time, because once that crush sleeve starts crushing, you're going to come up on the right rotational torque in a big hurry. So I'm being very careful, just doing a little bit at a time here to not pass that point and have to take this all apart again. Oh, that's nice. That's getting close. It's got to be getting close. Feels tighter. Oh, there's about 12 that way, and only 10 that way. One more tiny ugga-dugga ought to do it. Okay, that's between 10 and 20. I'm happy with that. Rotational. And go back the other way. And that one's about 12. Oh, should I do one more? One more tiny one. If I go past, I'm going to cry. Try that. Okay, that's a nice solid 15. And that one's a solid 15 the other way. Winning! I guess I'm going to call that officially done. Well, I guess not completely done. I got to put the axles in and drop in the C-clips. But before I put the axles in, I got to open up my Willwood disc brake kits, and I got to get the caliper mounts on there. I'm just running out of steam. That was actually a lot of work, a lot more than I was expecting. So I'll get to that in a future episode. But really appreciate, special thanks to Quick Performance for all the support. Willwood Brakes, Vivor for the bearing puller, Teslong for the borescope, and special thanks to you, the viewer. Thanks for following along on these builds. Thanks for watching this all the way to the end. Hope you learned something. Feel free to comment down below. If you can, hit the like button. That gets the video out to more folks in YouTube land. And yeah, with that, I'm going to wrap it up there. I think I'm going to go inside and have a course. So with that, see you next week. And don't ever forget, if you got it, truckers brought it.